Wonderful. You're officially on the record. Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm sorry to have stuffed you around a couple of times with the timing. So thank you.
We're finally getting it done.
Getting it done. Yeah, that's right. Where are you at the moment? Where are we talking from?
You're talking to me from the southeast, out in Atlanta.
Oh, lovely. Got a gig down there, or that's where you live?
I stay part-time here, and I stay part-time in Los Angeles. So there's so much work in the southeast now, so I'm out here part-time.
Wonderful, beautiful part of the world too. All right, I'm going to do that embarrassing thing where I read your intro on air. So do forgive me that. So, and then we'll jump straight into it.
Sounds good.
Our guest is one of the great character actors of his generation, a man whose debut performance a whopping 37 years ago, oh my God, we're old, in Children of the Corn still gives us Generation X's terrible nightmares. His latest gig is opposite such names as Ellen Burstyn and Anne Margaret in the comedy drama Queen Bees. He's worked with everyone from Divine to Sean Penn. Let's get into our chat with the man, the legend that is Mr. Courtney Gains. Thank you so much for joining us.
Quite the intro, my friend. Quite the intro.
Took me hours and hours to write. No, thank you so much, mate. Listen, I want to start. Let's start with Queen Bees first.
Sure.
Working alongside such grand dames as Burstyn and Anne Margaret and Jane Curtin. A few days on set, I imagine. But what sort of lessons do you still take from working with the greats like that?
That's a great question. Actually, I was on the show for one day, and it was a cameo. And what was really great about the way it was set up is the first half of the scene is just my character watching them. So I really got to just sit there and watch these great actresses work. And I'm definitely a student of the game. I know about, say, like Ellen Bernstein. She's Actors Studio, so she's a method actress, and you could see her, she had this story she was telling them that was funny. You'd see her prep and think of something funny and then drop in, but so you have that kind of method technique, which I'm basically a method guy. But then you got someone like an Anne Margaret who's sort of like a hybrid of the charisma and the comic timing, but also came from that 60s, 70s school of acting. Yeah. Then you got like a Jane Curtin who just has that world-class comic timing, and Loretta Devine who has done Broadway and Waiting to Exhale. And really what I saw with her is how she was just, as I say, listening with her eyes, Yeah. So it was great to watch them work. And then the second half of the day, we, did our stuff outside, and I couldn't wait to get in there and jump in and have some fun with them. It was great.
And it looked like you did have fun. You got sat upon, which is always fun, and you got them in full flight. So it's like you say, it's a terrific little cameo.
Yeah, and not one I was going to pass up. I mean, I would have never thought I would have had the chance to work with Anne Margaret. So that was just a great, and she was really funny. All day long, she kept saying, "We're going to have to beat you up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry."
That was dream come true. Dream come true.
Exactly.
Let's go back a little bit over the career, if you don't mind. Sure. And I know you've answered an awful lot of questions about Children of the Corn. Malachai is one of the great sort of bad guys of cinema. And one of the great pieces of Hollywood casting, not only you, but getting John Franklin in there and a young Linda Hamilton. The late Linda Francis was an extraordinary casting director. Just go over for us again those early days, how that role came about and how you made it your own.
It came from Linda. She had seen me in a showcase and had basically at that point, decided she was going to find me work. And I'd gotten another film that she cast, and then it fell apart. The film fell apart. But that was already building this relationship with her. So she was the one who brought me in, and she was definitely the one who, when it came down to 2 or 3 people or whatever, who was the one who fought for me. Mm. So I owe my big break to her. Absolutely, 110.
Was it a buzz project going in? Was it a much sought after role? Because it was a period of sort of the early VHS years, and there was a lot of horror and a lot of sort of genre stuff being turned out.
Certainly no one was taking horror seriously the way it is today. It's so mainstream today. But I only remember one guy that I recognized, and that was can't think of the actor's name right now. He had a big research a few years ago. He was in Breaking Away, and he was in the original Bad News Bears.
Oh, Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah, Jackie Earle. He's great, but he's small, know, And so, I mean, I love his work, but he's small. And I looked at him, I was like, this pipsqueak ain't getting this job, you know? I just had a lot. I came in with a lot of attitude. I really felt like I had something to prove, and I really felt like I could do a role like that. And so I came in very very pumped and very cocky about it, honestly. And then the story goes in the audition, I pulled a knife on the reader, who Jeff Greenberg went on to become a very big casting director who would tell everybody that who ever listened to never do something like that, which he's absolutely right. But at the time, it was a fake knife, but he didn't know that when I put it under his throat. So,
Oh my God.
yeah, so it was, it's one of those stories where like, yeah, I would never do something as crazy as that now, but I was too young and naive and hungry.
LA born and bred, so I guess you're born with that. Were you? I guess I shouldn't assume that. Were you born with that actor's bug? Did you want to go into the biz from that early age?
I think being in LA was just I guess a coincidence. I sometimes wonder if I hadn't been, would I have had the nerve to go out there? I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty committed guy. When I commit to something, I'm kind of all in. But it was in my blood. My grandfather, who I had never met on my father's side, was a hoofer and a dancer and a piano player. And the only time I ever saw him when I was about 10, my grandmother said, there's your grandfather. And he was in a Shirley Temple movie.
Oh, wow.
So small part in a Shirley Temple movie. So that was and I've never been able to figure out which one. I was like 10,
Yeah.
I would like to see it again. But my mother was entertaining troops in the USO in World War II. She went to like a fame school in Los Angeles. So it was in the blood, but no one was encouraging me or pushing me in that direction, but no one was saying you can't do it either.
Yeah.
So no one said it wasn't possible. They just weren't. My mom wasn't sure about being a child actor, so she tried to keep me out of becoming a child actor, which in the end was probably a good thing.
Yeah. I'm going to go over a couple of the titles that interest me that maybe you don't get to talk about a lot.
Sure.
Working with sort of the icons of the Hollywood underground, Divine and Tab Hunter and Paul Bartel in Lust in the Dust. I remember that film very fondly. I think I snuck a VHS copy into the room and watched that one evening. What can you tell us about sort of the madness and the debauchery that I imagine went on in that film?
Well, they kept it away from me. I was young, but I know when you brought Divine up, I said, "Oh, he's going to talk about Lust in the Dust," which is great. I love talking about it, and not many people do. Yeah. So that was my third film, and the casting directors had seen me in a workshop. I studied with this guy named Virgil Fry, who ended up being my manager for a number of years, and so they'd come to the workshop and seen my work. So that's how I got in for that thing. But once I got the job, they scared me by saying, if you have any problems, the second AD on the film is straight. And that really scared me way more than if they had said nothing, And then when I got on the set for the first day, I got there, we went onto the set, and there was Divine all dressed in, full on drag. And it was on the back of this truck pretending to be on a horse with a whip going, yeah. And I thought, what have I gotten myself into, right? But it couldn't have been further from the truth as far as all that. Everybody was great, and Divine was great, and Divine was just a stone cold pro and a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, and Bartel is a legend as well, and to have some time spent with him as a young actor must have been.
I got to work with him. I got to work with him as a director, and then toward the end of his life, I got to work with him again as an actor in a movie called Dreamers. And it was so great to see him again. It was really like literally a month later he passed, so it was so great. Yeah. And I got to act with him too. But what was so great with him on that set is you'd catch him out of the corner of your eye, and you would just see how enthusiastic he was about the take, and he'd be like laughing, even when we'd be laughing out loud, he'd be like. When you see somebody that enthusiastic and so in your corner, you don't want to let them down, because there are so many directors that are just sitting back and they don't give you anything. They're just like, cut, move on, Yeah. So when you have someone who's enthusiastic and pumped, it gives you a great feeling. So I loved working with them.
Yeah, it was a great talent. Those teenage boom years when teenagers took over the cinemas, both on screen and in the multiplexes, and you were in films like Back to the Future, like Secret Admirer, like Can't Buy Me Love. I mean, yes, I think back to the 80s for me, and I can barely conjure an image, but they must have been heady days for you.
Well, I had been working at getting work for about 5 years. Like I said, I was in this workshop, and what I was seeing was there was all these other actors breaking out, right? So I knew the class was good, and everybody knew that I was one of the better ones in class when it came to like really digging in and doing some heavy work. And so what everybody, Virgil kept telling me, and everybody kept telling me, was like, look, when you turn 18, you're going to work. That's back then. It was all about the emancipation laws. You said you had to be 18 to work a full day. And then if you could look younger than 18, which I was looking like 15. Those were decided edges. And then to have 5 years of professional workshop training, all those things really built up. And as soon as I hit 18, which was right before Children of the Corn, I just didn't stop working for like 7 years.
Wow.
So, and after Corn being such a sort of big film and just such impactful for John and I, as far as characters, people would be reacting to us in the streets. Literally, kids would go crying to their mothers. I was like, not ready for any of this, but I realized the power of cinema, and I realized how I could get pigeonholed in that. And so I made a conscious decision not to play the same character twice in that 80s run. And I managed to pull that off. And it's funny like that. The industry is very like horses with blinders on. Whatever they see last is what they think you do. And the most extreme example of that was having done Colors. And how I got that was my acting mentor and Dennis Hopper had worked together. They were friends, and he helped them make Easy Riders. So I was able to get a phone call to take that meeting, and they were having a lot of trouble finding a white guy who knew about the gangbanger world. So I got the job pretty easily. But after that, my next 3 auditions were for gangbangers, right? It was like as a white guy, right? So it just shows you they just have no imagination. And so, like I said, I managed to just not do that. I managed to have a successful movie in comedies and in dramas, and that kind of gave, kind of set me a base that I am a legit character actor, and that I do have range, and that I can do a number of things. I think and I was always looking at knowing that I had to make that transition into adulthood. So I never stopped studying, because I knew that people were going to be coming from good colleges and coming from, Broadway, and that I had to keep working my chops. And I think that a lot of the people that worked in my acting class, once they started working, they stopped studying, and then they didn't really make that transition into adult acting. I always was looking long term,
You trotted over my next question there. It was about Colors. Colors is a film that I'm surprised that Colors isn't spoken of more glowingly or reverentially in current circles, because it was a film that I remember coming out at the time, and it gave sort of a cinematic world to this, I guess, otherworldly kind of part of LA that had been maybe misrepresented on film. What experience did you have on the streets of LA, both prior to the film, I guess you could say, and while shooting the film?
Well, first of all, I grew up in tough neighborhoods in LA. I grew up with friends of mine who were, now dead or in jail or were gangbangers and eventually got out. So I knew what that thing was like, and all the stuff that had been made before that, like movies like Boulevard Nights and stuff, they were cheesy. You know what I mean? They didn't really understand, and the way they dressed was all wrong. And I'd always get mad. I'd be like, this isn't how it is. So when Gerardo Mejia and I were doing Can't Buy Me Love, we had done a movie before that called Winners Take All for the same company. He knew that I was from those neighborhoods, and he was a pop locker and dancer originally. And he came to me and said, hey, I got this script. And they're like, it's really good. And there's actually a white boy in the gangs. You got to get on it. And I literally made a call that night and told, and then once I heard Dennis Hopper was directing, and I told Virgil, I said, you got to get me in on this. If there's one white guy in this movie that's a gangster, I gotta do it, because I know I want to represent, what that there's people don't realize there's white gangsters. There is, So it was a really, really good experience. And it was really Dennis Hopper. When he got approached, it was just a cop movie, and he was living in Venice Beach, but the really bad part of Venice Beach called Ghost Town. And he knew about the Bloods and the Crips, and he said, make it about the LA gangs and I'll do the movie. So it was really him that brought that whole thing to the forefront. And that movie broke West Coast rap. Rap was an East Coast phenomenon before that movie came out, Ice-T and all that. That all happened because of the movie. So it was groundbreaking at the time. It was absolutely fresh and groundbreaking. Nobody had seen anything like it.
I remember I was working for one of the local distributors at the time who had the film, and there was boardroom meetings, and there were marketing executives saying, how do we sell this in Australia? And I remember having a discussion saying, this isn't just about the LA gangs as vibrantly as it portrays them. This is about, disenfranchised teens. This is about a deeper issue that's universal.
Right. And through the years, you have these movies that tap that. You can go all the way back to Blackboard Jungle. That was a radical movie for its time. You can go the original Bad Boys with Sean Penn and Esau Morales, like showing these guys in juvie hall. Like every once in a while a movie comes along that really hits that what's happening to our youth conversation, even Rebel Without a Cause, And this was a modern version of that. This was like, this is what's happening in South Central, and this is what's happening with gangs. And, since then, it's only gotten worse with gangs like MS-13 and all those that are now basically like gang syndicates that come out of jail, So it was topical, and it still is.
I'm going to go a little bit left field now. A movie that I watch, and I have vivid memories of watching because it's such a stunning recreation of this historical period. But Field of Lost Shoes is something that has lived long in my memory. Your performance and the performances of those around you is extraordinary. Can you just give me, really, this is just for me now, can you give me a bit of insight into this wonderful film?
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you talked about it. It's not a movie that a lot of people know. What's funny is how I got the job was I had moved to a new neighborhood, and apparently the producer was driving in a car with Billy Zane, and they saw me walking down the street, and Billy was like, "You should put him in your movie." And then I got a call.
Okay, story over.
Yeah, it was such a wonderful role though to get. This Captain Chinook character who leads these kids into war. That's what was so interesting to me. Whenever you get a chance to get a historical piece under your belt, like on Memphis Belle, which was a Billy Zane, or this, you get to learn about stuff. Like we got to shoot at the academy in Virginia, VMI, the Virginia Military Institute, which was the second military school built after West Point. And I didn't even know it existed, and so we got to shoot there, and that was an incredible experience. I mean, Stonewall Jackson has a statue there. He taught there. That's why his team was so cracked, because they were all people he had trained. But with his horse's bones, they're buried under the statue, and his uniform that he was shot in is in the museum there. I mean, like serious history. And 6 of the kids that were killed in the skirmish are buried at VMI, and every year they walk the 50 miles or whatever it is. I think it's like 30 miles, and they leave their shoes. That's why it's called Field of Lost Shoes, because when they attacked, a lot of them came out of their shoes in the mud fields, because it was a farming area. Yeah. And so they every year these cadets pay homage. Only 400 students get into this school every year. Half of them drop out, and if you make it through, you have like a military career. Like 5-star General Marshall went there. 2 generations of Hattons. That's the kind of stuff that as an actor you get to be part of, and you realize, wow, you're part of something much bigger than yourself. What made the movie interesting is the movie was essentially funded by successful students who went to VMI. There's many millionaires who've gone to VMI, and they wanted to tell the story because it's a story more about the South, which of course are the losers of the Civil War. And so they wanted to tell that story about these kids. It's a famous story in the South, but people didn't know about it on any kind of national level. And it's the only time in American history where students were actually involved in a war. And it was the last battle that the South won, the Battle of Newmarket. It was the last battle they ever won before in the Shenandoah Valley. Before, after that, everything just went to toast. So it was, I like that it was telling a story that had not been told. I mean, we've heard a lot of stories about the Civil War, but really never from a Southern point of view that may not just be, just boiled down to, they're the bad guys,
No, it's a wonderful film. Of your 140 odd credits, as IMDb has them most recently, I looked up and down there and I thought, well, I want to talk about that and I'd love to get some insight to that. Has anyone ever, I'm sure they have, what film do you want to talk about? What's the one thing that you're most proud of, or that is the most interesting story for you, big or small? What's your favorite moment as a character actor?
That's an impossible question to answer. There's a couple things I'd like to talk about, and one's out right now, and one's just fun. One that I produced that I had a lot of fun doing, a movie called Benny Bliss and the Disciples of Greatness.
Okay,
that's a lot of fun. The reason I enjoy it is because I got to do a lot of music in it too. I wrote 4 songs in it. we performed like literally a 30-minute set at the end of the film. That's like a live set, and no punch-ins vocally, nothing. And it was probably the most out of net as an actor I've ever been in film, because it was like really like a real show. You know, there was no, we did two takes of it, and that was it. And so that was a really fun experience for me. And I play this character, Benny Bliss, who via electric shock treatment gets a message from God that he's getting lonely because we're too addicted to all these screens, which we did like in 2006. It's only more relevant now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And because I've always been a little anti-technology, I've always questioned it all, resisted it a little bit, and but here we are on Zoom, right? So
sure, exactly, yeah. I get the irony, yeah.
But that I play this character. I basically invented this character, and it's somewhere between like Evel Knievel and Elvis. So it's just a lot of fun. So that's one. And then I just saw a movie that came out in the States on August the 13th. And I went to go see it in a theater called Charming the Hearts of Men. I did that out in Atlanta about 2 years ago.
Oh, the Kelsey Grammer. That's the Kelsey Grammer one.
Yes. You know, and it really came out good. And the acting in it, all the character actors, all the supporting cast, everybody did a really nice job. And the storyline is about this woman who is she's like a debutante, and she comes back to the South, to her home, to her father passed away. She thinks she's inherited the house and his wealth, but in fact he has no wealth. And so it's then about her struggles as a woman, which in the 60s was just, there was not a lot, you know, they wouldn't give her a loan or anything like that, and how she sort of then became sympathetic to women's rights, but also was right in the heart of the civil rights movement was going on. And she ends up working at this diner. That's my character, Mr. Spratz, is the owner of the diner, and she ends up allowing a sit-in that then causes a real ruckus in this town. And in fact, this really happened. And there's a photo that they, right after that, where I throw this cake and she has this cake. There's a photo of this cake for River. She's holding these cakes she bakes. And that was like so what bottom line is, she knows the congressman because she's well connected, and they're having a bit of relationship. And she gets him to put in the word sex, meaning any sex, meaning women, into the civil rights bill. And this is based on a true story. And, you know, you read a script and you hope it's going to come out good, but you never know how it's going to really come out. Yeah. And it's a nice film, and it's really well shot, and it's really well acted, and it's a message we're talking about. So obviously, just having seen it, I'm very enthusiastic about it right now.
I also want to talk to you about an upcoming project. In another life, I'm the festival director of the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival. So I wanted to talk to you about River. I've just got a glimpse of the trailer for Emily Skye's film, and I reached out to her overnight telling her I was interviewing you, and I want to try and get the film down here to Sydney. What can you tell me about River?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. That came out 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I have all these, you know, COVID, everything stopped. Now all these movies I've done over the last few years, like bam, 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 they're all coming out.
Yeah.
River was a really good experience. Shot that in North Carolina during the pandemic, but it was a very small cast, and we sort of stayed in a bubble the whole time. I got to play a character named Dr. Michael Glenn. It's only a 5-hander. There's only 5 people in the movie, and so my character sort of plays a hyphenate of roles. He plays a very close member of the lead girl's family, and she loses her mother. She also works at his antique shop, but he's also the local town psychologist. So when she starts having blackouts and like, where has she been, time lapses, she agrees to come work with me, and that opens up some. So it's a character that, like I said, there's like 5 people. They sort of like threw 3 characters into one with me, but I had a nice.
Courtney can do this.
I had a nice long COVID beard, and it was a very heartfelt character, not something I have got to play a lot in my past.
Yeah.
So I think as I'm aging into some of these other older characters, I'm starting to get some interesting roles, and it's an interesting role. And the movie's like sci-fi, but like thriller, and like, but very indie. And Emily is a true auteur filmmaker. She wrote it, she directed it, she shot it. She had a big hand in the editing, and she's a really good DP. She did an excellent job of using natural light.
It looks beautiful. Yeah, the trailer looks great.
Yeah, and this was her first feature. She's been working on a lot of stuff for a lot of years, including that they did a short of this that did so well in festivals. They got funding to do the feature. And I think, you know, I certainly hope to get a chance to work with her again. I had a very good experience, and I think she's showing a lot of talent. So I, by all means, hope you can get it and check it out. It's a cool film.
So do I. Yeah, I want to bring it down here. Mate, finally, with all your experience, what's the character actor's motto, I should say? What can you impart to young actors as they head into their career? You're a wizened man of the biz. What can you pass on?
I think it's an interesting combination of, on one hand, you have to be very, optimistic and cocky and believe you can do it even when you're facing, 90% rejection, to be able to go like, it's not me, it's them. They just don't see how great I am. You have to have some of that, right? Because it's just so much rejection. But on the other hand, I think you have to have a realistic view of who you are and what you can do. And I think that that's sometimes where things get lost in transition. It's like, there are people who watch basketball players on television, they're like, I can beat that guy. And then they face him and they realize they're nowhere near the level that it takes to play that. And I think that that's sometimes how people are in the film business too. They're not like, I think one of the reasons I'm able to survive this long is that I've understood I'm a character actor. My mentor had us watch people like Jimmy Dean and Marlon Brando and Monty Cliff, and I learned from them. But I was also it was clear to me I wasn't them, and I wasn't going to be them. So it was like, how do I do what I do? And then you find your fit. And I realized early on I was a character actor, and there's nothing wrong with that. And yes, I would like to do leads, but I know I'm not like a leading, quote unquote, handsome leading man or, leading lady. You have to know if you're not that, then you're not that. And what can you do? And as a supporting actor, the word makes sense. Supporting actor, that's exactly what you do. You support the leads, you support the film. And this Charming the Hearts of Men is a great example of that. It's a really big ensemble, like 60 characters. There's some wonderful characters supporting this film. And I think that's why my career is for the most part has been ensemble work. That's where I find my niche. But over the years, I've been able to look at myself and go, okay, you're 30 something now. What does that look like? You're 40 something now. Yes. Now I'm like 50 something now. What does that look like? What are the roles that are available? And what are the roles that I can do that I think are with some of this 50-year-old stuff is tough for me because a lot of it is more white collar, because you have to be an established person. If you're 50 years old in a movie, you're an established human being in this movie. Your character is like, the captain of the police force, sure, or he's the head of surgery, or because there's no point for you to be there otherwise. Yeah. So I'm finding my niche, like saying, I could play, I've played a couple of doctors, a couple of shrinks, things like that I wouldn't have been getting 10 years ago. Yep. So you find your way and where can you fit in there? Are you going to play the father? Or now we're even talking, maybe, who knows, I might even play a young grandfather, but being open to that, right? Being open to that,
Sage advice, my friend. And I know that your career has provided endless joy for me, endless terror in some moments, excitement as well. So Courtney Gains, thank you so much for being part of Screen Watching. I see the musical instruments behind there. I know that you're a man of musical talents. Can you play us out? Can you reach back and just grab one of those, or are they antique pieces?
Let me see. Which one?
I hate putting you on the spot like that, but
that's good. Let me grab this new one. I just got a little Martin Dreadnought Jr.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Honestly, I never thought I'd own a Martin. They're so expensive, but I found a good deal. Let's see. What should we play? I wasn't prepared for this.
I know. I did lump it on you. I'm sorry, but you've been a sport, so thank you.
Well, this is the last single I put out about 3 weeks ago. It's called Let It Ride. Got to let it all ride. Got to let it slide, slide, slide. Changing time. Well, I've been so blind. Coming on, oh yeah, well, right and wrong. Said, baby, gone, oh Lord, well, I can't deny. said, baby, gone. She long gone, yeah. Had to leave. Said she got to be free, yeah, right. Don't you coming on, yeah, we'll right and wrong. I said, baby, gone, I know we're so mine. Said, Hawk don't wanna know what it can't see. Said it don't wanna face harsh reality that you ain't my baby now. No, 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 no. Said I guess it don't wanna face the smoke and let it all ride. Got to let it all ride. Got to let it slide, slide, slide. Changing time. Well, you know I've been so blind. Felt it coming on, oh, yeah, we'll right and wrong.
Oh, my man, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Courtney. Where can we get that? Your websites or just through the iTunes?
Yeah, you can find stuff on Spotify.
Yep.
I have this last one's called Acoustic Gains, Volume 1, and this was the third single we just put out. And then, yeah, you can find it on, Apple and Deezer and iTunes and all of that as well.
Oh, you're a gentleman. Thank you so much for coming to the party with that. And thank you once again for joining us on Screen Watching. Courtney Gains, thank you, mate.
Pleasure meeting you.
Okay, all the best. Thank you.
All right.